So welcome everybody to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. And today is Monday, September the 18th, 2023. And their call-in number is 563-999-3581 and press 1. And that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And I see we have a couple hands up, but Michael's not dialed in yet, so we'll give him just a minute. And I do have a question once he gets on the show to ask for him to address as well. So we had a wonderful time. We were a week at the beach with Michael J. and Jamie and Kaylee Jo, our youngest granddaughter. And we just had playtime. We got to watch her take her first steps, and so it was pretty awesome. If you're on Facebook and part of a friend or whatever where you can see my posts, you'll see all kinds of pictures of the week. I got up every morning and took pictures of the sunrise, and each evening I took pictures of the sunsets, and I know some people think, well, they're the same. They look the same. But the experience of them was so different every day. It was amazing. And I was just trying to find the email so that when he gets on that I read it. I hope that everybody had a good week. And there it is. Okay. So hope everybody did have a good week. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on 360. You are on the air. Who do we have?
Hello, it's Julia.
Hi, Julia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Good. I'm doing good. So Michael will be with us here very shortly, but it was an awesome session on Saturday. I was able to get both, Sunday. I was able to get the 1 hour, though, from Saturday while we were in the car. I pulled down that video as well as the others, so hopefully you got that in your email.
Yes, I did. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I'm calling in to do a worksheet with Michael on the topic we discussed yesterday. And so,
give him just a minute. I said we'll give him just another minute. We actually, since we had been gone all week, our neighbor watered everything, but they didn't harvest anything. And so we were going through all of the gardens, and we got like a 5-gallon bucket of tomatoes and peppers, and got 2 pitiful little okra. I'm not going to even plant that again next year. But the tomatoes and the peppers are going crazy, and I also harvested lemon balm and catnip. I grow catnip for my son and daughter-in-law's cat.
Nice.
Yeah, they say.
Yeah, I bet the kitties love that.
Yeah, they say that it's a good tea to drink too. I haven't tried that, but I grow it fresh.
Oh.
Yeah, so let me just double check and see where we just came in and had to wash up and everything, so we were running a little late, but hold on a second.
Okay.
Okay, he said he's going to be just another minute, but for us to go ahead and get started. So, so for the listening audience, if you want to give just a little bit of a background of what we're doing the worksheet on, like, just you don't have to go into big detail of the story, but just enough background so that they know what we're working on.
Yeah, so I was a Buddhist for 20 years, and Tibetan Buddhist, and I took a specific empowerment And an empowerment is a blessing ceremony that is gives you permission to do a specific practice. And so this specific practice had a vow, and there was a punishment for breaking your vow. And it was, they said, if you break this vow, you will go to Vajra hell. And the Tibetans really cherish this life as a human being, that it's a great gift that we receive, because we can purify eons of karma by engaging in benevolent practices. And they believe that their practices are very powerful in removing lifetimes of negative karma that we've been accumulating since beginning this time. And that, right, to me, that kind of sounds like all the corrupt data, right, that we've been
right. And it sounds like a lot of other religions too, not just Buddhism, you know.
Yeah. And so their way of doing that is by recitating mantras to, like, there's a deity for every, you know, for lots of different purposes, and like there's a specific deity for purifying karma. They all purify karma by engaging in the practices, but they have one that's the Vajra Sattva, and by making praises and practice and saying mantras to Vajra Sattva, and there's a visualization that goes with it. You remove negative karma. And so I broke my vows, and I haven't been practicing the specific practice that said that I would be going to Vajra hell. So, Michael suggested I do a worksheet.
Said, that's like, yeah, well, we will definitely do a worksheet on that. But it's just like all the religions, you know, if you don't do it this specific way, then you're going to be damned. And it's, you know, a way of keeping people in line. I mean, you know, to threaten them with eternal punishment for something. I did include in the email, have you seen the email yet?
Yes, I did.
I included a section on Tempo. He was a Buddhist that we met out in Oregon, and he was recognized as the reincarnation of the enlightened Buddha of wisdom. And he is such a sweet soul. I mean, we had like 4 days that we didn't have anything scheduled, and somehow or other he got a hold of us, and we were within 30 miles of his center in Oregon. And so we went by there, and first he wanted Michael to just teach him. He had been sick and been in a center having treatment or whatever, and had watched some of Michael's tapes that they had there in the healing center. And so he wanted to meet Michael. And so he had Michael teach just him, just the two of them in a room. I guess he wanted to make sure what Michael was teaching before he let his students, you know, hear it. And then the next day he had, or maybe it was even that same day, he had Michael teach the students that lived there on the, I don't know what to call it, a campus or a retreat or whatever. And so Michael taught them. Yeah. And then the next 2 nights he had him go to the centers and teach the congregations. That one of them spoke English, the other one just spoke Tibetan. And Tempo translated as Michael taught. And for those that are listening and weren't part of our breathwork session, they had 5, what they called 5 positive thinkings. And Kempo had an assistant. She's been with him for years. And she wrote down and gave it to me how what they teach and what we teach is the same. And so these 5 positive thinkings will cause true happiness. And compared to ours, it's being and just being love. And the first one they say is wishing self to be free from suffering and free from causes of suffering. And ours is of course, being free from the non-being, anger, fear, hostility, which creates the suffering. The second one is compassion, wishing others to be free from suffering and free from causes of suffering. So the first one was self. Second one is others. And we wish the same thing. We want others to be free from the non-being, from the anger, fear, and hostility. The third one is faith, wishing self to have happiness and causes of happiness, which is the Buddha nature. And ours is wishing self to be connected to love, Yeshua, and God nature. The fourth one is love, wishing others to have happiness and causes of happiness, the Buddha nature. And what we teach, wishing others to be connected to love, Yeshua, and God nature. And their fifth one is wisdom, the knowledge that we are love, and that's the same as us, the knowledge that we are love. And so what they teach and what we teach is basically the same, and they just absorbed it. I mean, it was awesome to be with them. But, yeah, it's like it doesn't matter what religion, what belief system. I think every single one has that belief that, if you break our rules, if you go in another direction, then, you're going to be damned. And so, yes, doing a worksheet on that. So Michael has joined us. And, Michael, this was from the conversation on Saturday, and you had suggested that Julia call in and do a worksheet on the being sent to the Basha hell for breaking her vow.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
And hi, Michael.
Hey there, young lady.
I also had Lama Choga stay with us for like a week when we lived on Orcas Island, and he did fire puja at this lake. And while he was doing his fire puja, there was somebody like 20 feet away from us baptizing somebody in the lake. So we thought that was
How
pretty
cool is that?
Yeah. So, and I had heard you say that you had taught this method to a Tibetan Lama before, and I always wondered, I wonder which Lama that was. And so then when I saw your email that it was Lama Choga, I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who he's talking about. So that's really cool.
He's the sweetest guy.
Yeah.
He was just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a sweet energy. So joining you and tapping into that sweetness, and if you listen to Yeshua, there's a point, and my quote isn't exact, but basically what he says is, go ahead and deny me. I mean, he's one of the few. Go ahead and deny me. I don't care. But the one I'm trying to connect you with, if you deny that one, you're in trouble. And I think all of the religions are heading for the same thing, but men, in their own inadequacies and their own weakness, have to have a hero that's the superhero and better than everybody else's. And, my God can kill your God, beat up your God. The old my dad can beat up your dad. They're not over childhood competition games yet, so that tends to be something that goes on and on and on. But when you get back to the Aramaic Yeshua, you're really working with what's at the core of human life. And I think that each of the religious leaders brought that forward and brought it forward to large numbers of people, and unfortunately small numbers of hostile, fearful people who weren't willing to do their work said, as they said to Yeshua, too hard a saying when he tells them what they need to do. And literally in that particular instance, half of his disciples leave and never come back. And I suspect, I don't have any historical evidence, but I suspect that half that left are the ones who made up the Jesus saves, Jesus will do it for you, there's nothing you need to do. And it's totally and completely a case of he said, here's a work to be done. Too hard a saying, we're out of here. So, and I mean, in that particular instance, if you're familiar with that whole passage, the energy is so intense with this half of his disciples leaving that Yeshua even turns to Peter and says, Peter, are you leaving too? Are you finished? So it's when you're asking people to really delve in and deal with the most horrific generational patterns that have happened within our bloodlines, you're asking people to take a huge leap of faith that can actually be done, And then, okay, so here are the tools. Now you start chipping away at it. So we're here for support,
Yes.
and which aspect of the conversation are you?
All the way.
Okay. So which aspect of the conversation we had in the Still Point MindShifters and Still Point Breathing Club workshop were you wanting to work? In the threat of being sent to hell?
Probably that's a good place to start. Yeah. I mean, I really kind of don't believe that because I don't feel like a divine being would condemn me to hell. That just doesn't resonate with me, and I think,
of course, it's impossible.
Like, why are you?
It's silly.
Yeah. And so, but I feel like I kind of might have. It's about faith in something, right? And so I feel like I abandoned my faith in this deity and doing this practice that it would help me evolve and clear up my negative karma and ultimately lead me to becoming enlightened. And, you know, their aspiration is to become enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. So, I think that it kind of messed with my faith. And
yeah. You say you messed with your faith?
I think it did. I think I broke that faith. No, I broke my faith.
There you go. You broke the faith. Remember our definition of denial. Whenever I think or speak as though something outside of me. Oh, it broke my faith. No, it didn't, but it provided an opportunity for you to make a choice, and you chose to give up your connectedness and your faith in that regard would be my offering.
Yes.
And when I bring it back to, yes, I did it, then I have the power to undo it.
Mm-hmm.
So then, who would be the focal point of that worksheet? Who would be the individual that had that conversation with you and made that threat?
I did. There were multiple. I heard it from multiple people, but one person was the person who bestowed the empowerment that gave me the vow, and that would be that particular person. I took it from like two different people, but the first person, his name was Genla, Genla, Genla.
Right. So shall we make him the subject of the worksheet? You want to put him in number 1C?
Yeah, so I've got 1A is me, and then the emotions is the B, and so my emotions maybe would be guilt.
Okay. Good one. And what's the thought that you have to think to experience the emotion of guilt?
That I will be, that I'll be sent to hell.
Okay.
So Genla said I would be sent to hell.
Okay. So then that would be the situation
which
in
I
number
guess that
1C.
might be even worse. Yeah.
Right. You get to select which hell you want to go to.
Well, Vajra, the word means diamond, and it means indestructible, and it means like a spiritual thunderbolt. So those seem like good words, but who knows what that Vajra hell is like. I hope I never experience it. But yeah.
Well, my offering would be the only way that you could possibly experience would be to engage in the thought disorders that create that condition. That's the only way you could experience it.
Yeah.
Which means that what it is for one person would be different for another person. One person might say, oh, I went to that hell, and the other says, I went to that hell, we'll tell you about it. And their realities will be totally different because they're internally generated realities.
Yes.
And so what you want to do is ferret out the exact thought disorders and the goal involved that keeps you using those thought disorders to create this perception, this construct in your mind of guilt. And when you get to the specific goal that causes your mind to produce that and then cancel that goal, then what happens is that structure in your mind of guilt collapses. I suspect there's probably an element of fear in it as well, perhaps, and they might actually be two separate worksheets.
Yeah.
And then when you find the specific goal that's driving that perception and are able to collapse it, then you're able to touch into the structure that's underneath that construct. And when you bring that to the active presence of love, literally to God, then it's seen through the actual Creator's eyes, through the actual presence of love. It dissolves, that's all. Because there is no substance other than, my take would be the systems that have, what's the best wording? Intricate, trauma-based forms of punishment that they have made up and then turn them into a deity, make them something that they're not. When you unwind the energies behind that, then that's gone from your field. You're done with it. That's all. So if you were to, so you fill in number 1C, his name, and then the second part, what he told you.
Yes.
You've got the thought disorder behind the guilt. What specifically is the thought that's involved in producing that?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I feel bad that I kind of feel like another thing that was said that I would be wasting my human life, and that this precious human life is an amazing opportunity to transcend all my negative karma by relying on the deity. But that the deity would remove my negative karma. And I just kind of felt like, I feel like that's giving my power away. And that's another reason why I kind of stepped away from it, was I wanted to find my own power without relying on a deity.
Right. Do you know how we give our power away? What's the mechanism behind that? My offering is that the mechanism...
Through my BS?
Through denial. Through denial.
Denial?
I give my power away. When I deny ownership of this, I have just handed my power to something or someone outside of me. And when my mental construct, which is the way all these stories come together, whether it's Catholicism or Protestantism or Buddhism or, whatever, Jainism, anything that has a punishment aspect, is when I enter into denial, I said, I don't want to be responsible for this. And there's always going to be somebody who's going to come volunteer to take your power and say, oh, I'll take responsibility. And then a story is made up that something outside of, and I believe a story that something outside of me has to now undo what's going on inside of me. And with this work and what my take is with the work of Yeshua was to hand that power back to the individual and show them how to remove every mechanism within them of denial and arrive back at that true precious human life. And the precious human life my offering isn't the fact that you've got a body and you get to live what we call a human life. The precious human life is recapturing your essence as active present love, as created, and then expressing your life as that, through that. And if fear or hostility in any form gets in the way, now your mind is using corrupt data, and that corrupt data needs to be cleaned up. And that's what's been called karma. It's also been called sin. As you sow, you reap. And as you allow yourself to, rather than, what happens when we do the denial game, so this isn't my fault, it's somebody else's fault, then what occurs is I have to hide what it is that I'm in denial about. And once I've hidden it, the very act of hiding it from myself means I put energy into it. I intensified it. I had to focus on it and push it down. Imagine I've got a 3-foot diameter spring. It's on the ground and it stands about 3 feet high. Can that 3-foot diameter spring do anything? Nothing. It's just sitting there on the ground. But what happens if I push down on it? Well, when I push down on it, I put some kinetic energy into it, and that becomes stored as potential energy. And if I lock it when I get to the thrust, the highest thrust of my push, I lock it, then that potential energy is stored in the spring. I push it down again, another level, and I lock it, and I push it, and so all of that kinetic energy, all of that force that I'm putting into that spring is stored in that spring, and when I let the lock off, it's going to fly. Well, how that relates to us living in denial is when I go, that caused my this, that caused my pain. Oh, I'm only upset because of when I'm in denial. Then I'm pushing down the spring. I'm dissociating from whatever it is, and now, as opposed to just sitting there as kinetic energy, it's literally, because we're doing this with mind energy. Mind energy, all energy by definition, is motion. And so if I push down mind energy, I literally set up an energy field that radiates from me to all the world. And somebody who's going to be in tune with that energy is going to be attracted to me. Resonance creates motion toward in the human realm. So when they show up and then they do the behavior that resonates what I've dissociated from, what I do is I keep what I've dissociated from in hiding, so I don't experience it directly, but what I then do is I put that very energy that they've resonated in me into my brain's image of them. So I create a construct out of what I've dissociated from of them with my energy attached, and now I know it's their problem because my mind is showing me that it's their problem. That's the false perception that needs to be collapsed. And when it's collapsed, what happens is, rather than being in indirect relationship with the cause of my pain, like, what's indirect relationship with the cause of my pain? You make me so mad. Well, I now believe that this person out here is the cause of my mad. I'm still experiencing the mad. I'm still experiencing the upset, the disturbance, the pain of it, but I'm using that very energy to build my brain's image of them so I can keep the pretense up that it's outside of me. And what I want to do, and what first century Aramaic forgiveness does, is it collapses that whole construct that keeps me in indirect relationship with my pain, and I come back into direct relationship with my pain. For some people, that's like, oh, that's too much, I couldn't do that. So, well, okay, then we have a deity out here that'll handle it for you. So we'll have somebody that'll fix it. The cause is outside of you, and therefore the fixing is outside of you. The real truth is, when I come back into direct relationship with my pain, rather than using it to build my brain's image of someone else that I blame, and I hold active present love in my physiology, the active present love transmutes the pain, rids me of my karma, rids me of what I've sown in my field. The law of sowing and reaping, or the law of karma, is absolute. You put it in there, you're going to get to live it out. Unless you go to grace. What is grace? Well, that's another thing that's been kind of kept mysterious. Grace. Oh, yeah, I need grace. And people talk about it like it's some sort of thing I'm knighted with from something outside of me or whatever. Grace, well, we are. It's a gift. We are given the ability to change our minds anytime we want. That's living in grace, but I have to come into direct relationship with what it is that I'm creating my trauma with to change my mind and have the grace, the energy that transmutes and rids me of that trauma, rather than waiting for a deity to do it, or depending on deity to do it. I mean, when you understand how the mind works, it's a system that works. I mean, if I can believe deeply enough, have faith in that deity, then, well, if I get the deity, then the deity will fix it for me. There's a really interesting passage in the scriptures with Yeshua, and there's this woman who probably kind of has this belief that Yeshua is a deity in the context of our conversation. And what she says to herself is, if I can just touch the hem of his garment. Here's a woman who's had this 12-year issue of blood. She's had a period that hasn't stopped in 12 years. Pretty traumatic. And she says to herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment. Now, it doesn't mean she wanted to touch a piece of cloth he was wearing. What she was saying was, if I could get into an energy field, in this case Yeshua, and be vitalized, boosted by it, supported by it, then I would be able to throw off this dis-ease energy. And in that particular passage, if you read it, it talks about how there was a throng there. I don't know how many were in a throng, whether it's 20 or 50 or 500, or maybe the 5,000, I don't know. But she's the only one who got a healing. And when they wanted to put it on Yeshua's shoulders, he's like, no, it was her faith. It was her action. Yes, she needed some support, and I gave it to her. But it was her work that made her whole, that relieved her of that dis-ease energy. And it always comes back to each individual has to be willing to do their own work. Yes, we can create belief systems that something else outside will help us, and that belief will help us, but it will help us not because that something outside of us is helping us. It'll help us because we have a belief that something outside of us will help us. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
So then where we want to go now is for you to embrace all of the, whatever it was, fear, guilt, and again, you might do separate worksheets on each aspect that you touch into. We know there's at least fear and guilt here, that you'll do separate worksheets on each of those to allow you to tap into that energy and bring it forward to full awareness in the presence of active love so it can be transmuted or dissipated. So if you were to look at, well, we didn't do the punishment step. Was there a punishment thought toward the person who kind of laid this curse on you?
Do I have a punishment thought towards him?
Yes.
Like, do I want to punish him? No, yes. Absolutely not. No. I mean, that's how he grew up. He grew up in Tibet. He grew up with those, that's his belief system. And so I don't fault him at all. That's just their belief. And I would never want to punish Genla. No.
Cool. Okay. How about self? What's the punishment towards self? For having given up that
just
vow.
Maybe like maybe disappointment in myself that that I couldn't keep the commitment, or I don't know if I really have a punishment for myself because I changed.
Right.
So, and I don't really condemn myself for that. I mean, I made a conscious choice to stop doing this practice because I lost like faith in it. I just felt like this isn't really I felt contrived when I did do the practice. Like there were pieces missing. Like I'm just not getting it, you know. How is it that like by me focusing on this specific deity and saying all these really esoteric like visualizations of these, you know, creating a celestial palace with all these details that I can't really even wrap my brain around, you know, doing. What am I doing?
Well,
you know,
it's an elaborate ritual with which to have your belief captured. You know, when that healing happened with this woman who had this 12-year issue of blood, Yeshua's words were, her faith made her whole. So if I can create a ritual that I can put enough faith in that this will do it, then that, whatever that is, will do it.
Yeah.
And the words that you used, I'm not sure whether it was the word punishment. When we first started,
karma.
Yeah.
I would be sent guilt.
Well, what I'll do, because I apologize. I kind of got into the next thought, and I lost the word. But if you would go back to the recording after we're complete.
Yeah, I think we're at what is the thoughts that cause my emotional upset? I haven't written anything down there.
Okay, I was still thinking. I'm thinking in terms of the punishment of self. It was in regard to punishment of self.
Yeah, so, see, like, maybe I just need to. I don't want to punish myself, and I don't want to punish Gemma. So I don't have punishment thoughts. But what I think is like there's a part of me that might have some fear of that, like maybe this is true, and maybe I am going to go to the hell realm because I stopped doing this, you know. And but then again, my other mind says, no, that's crazy.
Yeah. So start another word. Well, remember that we can have multiple thoughts around any given issue, and at one moment or another, different energies are moving. So what I would do, like when I do worksheets, I've always got about a dozen blank sheets, and I find that I uncover 4 or 5 each time I do a single worksheet. So I do a worksheet on that specific one. Maybe I am going to go to hell. That's different than the worksheet we're doing on Gemlaw, but maybe I am. So I just take a blank worksheet and just put that in as a thought and a reminder that that's another worksheet to do.
Okay.
But what I'm inviting you to do when we complete, what I'm going to suggest you do is go back and re-listen to the show, and after we started talking about punishment of self, you used the language, I don't have, and I apologize, it might have been punishment was a different word, but if you will, we'll go back and listen and get that word. That's what I put in that blank, and I'd be working on that. Because, you know, Shakespeare gives us a really good clue. Observe our language. And what he says is, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. And you did, when I say, you know, if I say, don't think about the color of your car, what fires in brain cells? The color of your car. If I say, well, you know, I didn't have any punishment, I really didn't even think about kicking myself in the butt. So those the only reason I'd use that phrase as an example, I wouldn't even think of kicking myself in the butt, is because somewhere in my mind, kicking myself in the butt are in brain cells. That's what's firing. So there was a word that you used, and then we got on to another thought, and I lost it. But if you go back and give it a listen, that will be good to fill in that blank in number 1, E, around punishment of self, and work on clearing that one up.
Okay.
And you say you haven't filled in anything on the thought that causes the guilt?
Yeah, on D, 1D.
Okay. So what would be the thought that, when you think it, and when guilt is moving, when you sort of let your mind go to that whole circumstance, and guilt is moving, what's the thought that's causing guilt to move in you?
I think that I'm going to Vajra hell.
I don't think that's more in the circumstance, the number 1C.
Yeah.
For me, it would be more like I haven't kept my word, or I didn't keep my vow,
yeah.
or I broke my
I didn't keep my vow.
And the specific, I broke my vow, I didn't keep it, I was unfaithful. Whatever the variation on the theme is, that will be the thought that would go in that blank in D.
Yeah, I think that's good. I broke my vows.
Okay.
And stopped doing the practice.
And then, how about a mind shifter to work around that one?
Okay.
If you would write this on a separate piece of paper.
Okay, I got it.
It's safe and healing for me to change my mind, even a vow, when I reach a new level of awareness.
Nice.
So I do that as a mind shifter and ferret out any other thought disorders that are keyed into, the whole idea of I didn't keep my word, I wasn't faithful, I wasn't true, I was not, whatever the variations on the theme that would lead to that stronger reaction, you'd want to go in and clean up. So if you do that as a mind shifter and let yourself drop into whatever those thoughts are, and then you'll probably uncover some other worksheets that will be valuable to do.
Yeah.
And you may even uncover circumstances or thought disorders that are generational. Who knows what's at the root? This is one of the reasons why the number 1 pseudo solution of the non-being mind, when you get to that part of the codependence intensive, when we get into that, I don't know if you've gotten to that in the videos yet, but the number 1 is, if I could just figure this out. And the truth is, I can't figure it out because who knows? Maybe 5 generations ago, great grandfather cheated on mom, and just afterward, was just in such distraught energy that who knows what he did. I'm just using that as an example, but oftentimes, especially the things that are deeply disturbing emotional responses, come from generational patterns that have played out and impacted all of the generations since that particular event occurred. It might be something 2 generations ago, 20 generations ago. It might be something that happened when you were in utero that mom did, and that you physiologically experienced the chemistry of that as being a part of her body. That's why that's to me is always the number 1 pseudo solution. No, you can't figure it out, but I can forgive it. whatever it is. Doesn't matter how long ago it was, doesn't matter how deep it is, doesn't matter how many generations, doesn't matter how many millions of lives between them and me and the bloodline have been impacted by that. I can apply forgiveness right now. I can access that underlying energy, and I can throw it off of my structure and be freed of it.
Yeah.
So I do that mind shifter to see if there are any other pieces in there that be, it's kind of like that are keyed into this spider web that you're unfolding here.
Yeah. Lovely.
Cool. So then number 2.
2A, I choose
complete
to
with number
love
1?
truth. And, well, I didn't put anything in 1E. I want to punish.
The punishment. Okay, well, you've offered that you're free of punishment in terms of, I don't remember his name.
Genma.
Genma.
Yeah, I wouldn't punish Genma.
And,
yeah, so maybe.
And maybe put a note that you're going to go back and listen to and see what your speech was around that when we were talking about punishment of self. See what that word was.
Yeah. Okay.
And the worksheet that you're working on was designed when I still was lost in the brainwash of the culture that we can love. That's a verb. It's something we can do, and so that I choose to love truth, and that actually has been corrected. The latest worksheet says I choose to honor truth because love. I've gotten really clear that it's important for us to reserve that word for one thing and one thing only, and that is what it truly describes, and that is who we are as human beings. I can't do love. I can only be love. And so that would shift that language into honoring truth.
Yeah. Okay. And willingly face and process out all dis-ease, reducing energies from all my relations, generations. I willingly go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. I release and surrender myself, my emotions, my story, my thoughts, and my punishment to love. And my desire, the constructive result, the exact goal that drives my pain perception, my trigger, is freedom.
What is it that? So I think freedom would be one of the keys to the forgiveness process is really specifically identifying what the goal is that's driving this construct in my mind. And freedom, yes, fits in the kind of the general category, but I think it's much more specific than that. And you want to be more specific because the only way that a construct of the mind collapses is when you find the goal that's driving it and remove it. So for me, it would probably be something more like I want Kenwa to support my new choices, or I want to be strong enough to make my own choices, but specifically the goal that you would hold for him as you look at this whole circumstance, what would it be that you'd want from him specifically, seeing as how he's number 1C, the object of attention in the worksheet? What would have been the goal in this circumstance where you were ready to be alleviated of the vow?
To release me from my destiny to go to Vajra hell for breaking my vow.
Okay. So then it sounds like the piece going in there with the Dodger Hell doesn't sound like it really fits, but for him to release you of your vow.
Releasing of my vow, yes.
Would seem like it'd be more keyed in. And again, I would suggest you start another worksheet on yourself. So maybe if you've got a blank worksheet there, just mark in number 1C, self. And the situation is, I'm stuck in a cycle of punishment if I change my mind.
Okay.
And the goal would be to be able to choose to give up a vow if you choose to do so. Yes, I was at one level when I made that vow, and now I'm at another level, and I choose to give it up. And that's okay, as opposed to being stuck in an old fear-based mind complex that may be reflected a power person dynamic. You know, it might be a power person who, you know, you said you were going to do this and then railed on you because you didn't, and, you know, punishment went on, or whatever the variation on the theme is. And so I do a worksheet on self and you being empowered to be able to give up a vow if you choose to when you reach a new level of awareness.
Yeah.
What does that do to your breath?
Well, I held it for a second, but then I released it.
Okay. So then just repeat that thought to yourself and just kind of watch what happens with your breath as you do. And what happens in your physiology. Usually when the breath is held, even if it's just for a second or an instant, if you really pay attention, you'll notice where it's shutting down the energy in tissue. You know, it might be the throat, it might be the neck, it might be the scalp, it might be the lungs, it might be the torso, it might be the buttocks, it might be the feet. But just when you think that thought and you notice your breath stops, where does the tightness occur? Where does the shutdown happen?
Yeah,
and that's where you want to focus your breath. Okay, good, good. So then as you go back over that thought, allow yourself to speak those words again and notice that you can take breath into that area of your chest and let it open. Whatever's stored there in carbon-based memory, it's safe to undo it, whether it's just a surface kind of thing, or maybe it's an old, deep dynamic that happened with a power person. Let's just breathe into it and see what moves. And what happens?
Nothing's really coming up. I didn't really have punishing parents at all.
Okay.
And so...
Well, I'd invite you to maybe do a worksheet around that thought, because the language is there about punishment with parents. You know, I laid that out as a possibility. Maybe it was parents, maybe it was something that happened generations ago, maybe it was something that happened in childhood. But the fact that your language goes to, I didn't have punishing parents, says that somewhere in brain cells, there's the idea of punishing parents going on. Now again, that may be generational, or it may be something that happened with parents that you've denied, that you've hidden from yourself, and, you know, was too much to handle. I don't know. But the fact that the language is there, you know, again, Shakespeare, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. When I bring words forward, and I bring them forward with it wasn't this way is what's firing in brain cells. And I want to look at, on a deeper level, whatever that is. I was using an example of, so let's imagine that, I'm going to Fort Lauderdale. I'm going to fly out to Fort Lauderdale tomorrow, and I'm going to meet you there. You're going to Fort Lauderdale too. And I call you, before the flight leaves and say, yep, well, see you in Fort Lauderdale, and by the way, I'm not going to Miami. Why would I say to you that I'm not going to Miami? Or why would I wouldn't say I'm not going to China, I'm not going to Europe, I'm not going to, Canada. I'd say I'm not going to Miami because there's something in my brain cell structure firing about Miami. And so when I say there was no punishment from my parents, I didn't have punishing parents, there's something about punishing parents that my offering would be that language tells you there's something in the unconscious that needs to be resolved. And again, it may be just something generational. Or it may be something, have you ever, as a parent, punished? Breathing?
Yeah. I did, like when I was younger, and my parents weren't religious, and they didn't ever, take us to church or anything. It was neighbors that would see that we weren't going to church, and so they'd be like, oh, can we take your kids to Sunday school? And that's how I was exposed to Janity, and then I had stepsisters later in life that were Baptist, and they were like, yeah, you really need to be you need to be a Christian and come to church with us. And then I got baptized, and then they were like, you can't swear, you can't do this, you can't do that, and they were just dumping lots of guilt on me, and I just rejected it. I said, yeah, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this. And so
okay.
That's
so notice how that whole conversation opens up around the talking about dealing with the line that came from your speech of I didn't have punishing parents. And just be aware of how that connects, and aware that there's probably some work to be done in that arena.
How do you figure it out? How does that?
You don't. You can't. In a billion years, you couldn't figure it out. If you had access to every piece of data, well, here's the power of forgiveness. Whatever it is, I'm never going to figure it out. Like if I knew everything about my life, if I could have it all there right in front of me, and I knew everything about both my parents' lives, I still couldn't figure it out because there's their parents' lives and their parents' lives and their parents' lives and their parents' lives and theirs and theirs and theirs. And by the time you get out just 30 generations, you're talking about 1.6 billion lives in your genes. Who can figure that out? Who can ever fathom that? But the moment that it arises, the moment it comes to the surface, you've got a tool called forgiveness, and you can forgive it. And when you apply forgiveness to it, you dissipate the energy of it. Remember, forgiveness is the removal or the transmutation of the energies based in anything connected to any form of hostility or fear. So as opposed to trying to figure it out, which is, if you look at the whole world, if you've got an audience, if I'm doing a workshop and I've got an audience of 100 people, and I got everybody tell me their age, and I added all their ages up, and then I subtracted just 5 years for each of them, I'd have the number of years that everybody in that audience has been trying to figure it out, and it can't be done. But the whole world is trying to figure it out. But what I can do at the moment where I realize there's a challenge behind, is I can take this tool of forgiveness, the reality management worksheet, and I can process through it through forgiveness. as opposed to sitting here trying to figure it out. You know, at what point do I know enough facts to know the truth of what's happened? You know, I'm walking down the street and I see a man on the other side of the street slapping this woman in the face. And I run over and punch him out to save her. And he's like, well, wait a minute, why are you hitting me? She was having a seizure. I was just trying to get her out of her seizure. Oh, gee, I'm sorry, sir. Excuse me for hitting you. I'll help you get her out of her seizure. And then, after she gets out of her seizure, she says, yeah, I had a seizure because he was trying to rape me. Now I'm back to he's the bad guy. At what point do I know enough facts? There's no way to figure it out. But at any point, I can apply forgiveness, and the energy behind it will be processed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's the beauty of this tool. Whatever it is, if I'm able to breathe into it and I can apply forgiveness, whatever's hiding, whatever's hidden, is able to come forward. You know, in the scriptures they talk about, you know, whatever we hold, well, the way it says it is, nothing will remain hidden. Everything will be made known in the light of day. Well, everything that would be made known in the light of day, this karma that's going to play out, can be forgiven in the presence of active love. And we can be alleviated of that energetic pattern. It doesn't matter if it goes back 10,000 generations. If I look at the goal at this moment that's driving my mind to use that data, I can cancel that goal and I'll have access to that data that goes back 10,000 generations. It will come up in the presence of love and be dissolved, and I'll be free of it. No need to figure one thing out. And I just had the announcement here that we're complete because we've got, well, about 20 seconds ago it said we've got 10 seconds. So we're going to have to pick this up tomorrow if that works for you, and carry on. And maybe between now and then you'll have a chance to listen to today's show and see what that word was that related to self-punishment.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to open this conversation up. I think it's allowed us to really touch into some of the finer points of the whole process, and I appreciate your participation. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your presence. Thank you so much.
All right. Bless